Plugins have such an awesome ability to make the songs that you hear in your head just totally come to life. So maybe you've already got a DAW and you're playing around in there, recording some of your stuff. This is going to be your Plugins 101. For the new producer, just starting to make your own songs, we want to funnel down all the overwhelm into just simple, here's what you need to know about plugins. But in order to use plugins effectively, you are gonna need some equipment. So I put together a completely free guide if you're building out your home studio called the Home Studio Blueprint, and it is a blueprint, my friend. This is not just a list of best recommendations. I mean, it is that, but it's more than that. I spent time on this so that you could kind of plug yourself in with your storyline and what you wanna have happen with your songs and be directed about what you should gather, what you should get, what you should spend money on, and what you should kind of skimp on because you don't really need it, but people say you do. This is my gift to you as a starting producer. If you want to check that out, link is in the description, or of course, you just go straight to studiogearblueprint.com. But today we're gonna be jumping into plugins. What are plugins? That's where we gotta start. And so it's important to realize that the plugins are just tools. Right, so plugins can't really stand alone by themselves. They require a DAW, all right? So plugins are tools that you can use to enhance, clean up, affect, manipulate audio. This is huge for us as music producers, right? They literally plug in to your DAW and they can make your DAW more capable of achieving the sounds that you want. So these things are awesome. They're quite literally, without getting too nerdy and stuff, they're like self-contained pieces of code that like plug into your DAW, be it GarageBand, Fruity Loops, Logic Pro, whatever, and they give you the ability inside of your DAW to use the capabilities of the plugin to get the sounds and transformation that you want with your audio, all right? This is huge, this is huge. And we wanna remember that in this production series we're doing, it's all for beginners, that our definition of music production is this: using tools and processes to take your written song from where it is now to where you hear it in your head, right? So what we're talking about today is one of the tools. This is one of the tools that you can use to quite literally take what you want, what you hear in your head, and put it into your DAW and start to hear it through your speakers or your headphones, all right? This is awesome stuff. So we're gonna talk about a few of these things, like how do you get plugins? Right? The good news is you probably already have like a whole suite of them at your fingertips, right? Which is maybe why you're watching this. There are different kinds of plugins. So there's things called native plugins. There's things called third-party plugins. And the native plugins just mean that they come preloaded with your DAW that you already have. So if you're playing around in GarageBand or you're playing around in Logic Pro or any DAW that you download these days, comes with these plugins already preloaded. So there's gonna be an EQ, there's gonna be a compressor, there's gonna be effects that you can play around with. Those are all plugins. You probably already have them, which is pretty sweet. There's third-party plugins, which are just plugins that you could download and install just separate from your DAW. You know what I mean? So like they're just separate from the manufacturer. So like if you are in GarageBand, which is an Apple product, right? But you download a plugin that has nothing to do with Apple, it'll just be a third-party plugin that you can get. And there's so many of these. There's actually a ton of awesome ones that are free that are third-party. So there's plenty at your disposal. We just got to learn which ones we need to use as beginners, right? How much do they cost? Well, they don't have to cost anything. Like I just said, they're probably already free. And especially if the DAW that you purchased or got was free, I keep going back to GarageBand, but it's an awesome example, right? It's free and it comes with all the stuff already. If you bought something like Logic Pro or bought something like Ableton Live Lite, well then you spent money and I guess you got the plugins with it. But anyway, we're gonna talk about here is free plugins and paid plugins, right? Those are the only two categories. Because we're not gonna be talking about downloading stuff illegally. We're not gonna be talking about cracked plugins, all that stuff. If you wanna be looking at all that stuff, you can just go to another channel. I have no interest in doing any of that. I think that's ridiculous. I think you're stealing from other people, blah, 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 blah. This is just a plugin video, my bad. But you know what I'm saying? We got free plugins, paid plugins. With your free plugins, again, like we talked about, they come preloaded or you can download and install from a third party. Paid plugins are typically available just through a third party supplier. So if you've ever heard of a company or seen an ad, better yet, spooky, of Waves plugins or Slate Digital plugins or like McDSP or anything like that, those are all plugin companies, right, that create things that you can buy. And the price range, just as a heads up, could be, if you're paying, it could be anywhere from like $5 for a plugin, a good deal, or just a smaller plugin, towards $2,000 and up, depending on bundles, right? This is kind of getting into bundle territory. We're just getting like so many plugins in one thing, but still they can cost quite a lot if you want them to. So there's different ways to use these plugins. We can use plugins as a beginner. We just want to focus on these to enhance or clean up stuff. we can use plugins to manipulate or mess with stuff. Remember that a DAW is a song maker's toolbox. Okay, if you need a refresher on the DAW, you can check out that video real quick, but a DAW is our digital canvas. So if the DAW is our toolbox, the plugins that we can use inside are just the tools that we can use to build the songs that we want to make. The best enhancing plugins that you can use really come into play if you find yourself asking kind of like these questions. You're like, man, I really wish that this had more of blank. Or you're like, dude, this sounds so sweet. It's just kind of, it's a little too muffled. I wish it had less of whatever, right? If you find yourself asking those questions, you're probably looking at some kind of enhancing plugin or a cleanup plugin. And the two main ones that you need to know about are called EQ, so an equalizer, and compression. Those are the only two categories of plugins that I really want you to worry about at the cleanup level for right now, just the beginner level. So these EQ plugins, again, it's not the technical definition here. This is my definition to spare you jargon. EQ plugins are used to adjust frequency levels, like the volume of different frequencies. It's gonna allow you to manipulate different frequency regions. So you could think about if you said boosting the low end, it'd probably be an EQ that's gonna do that the most effectively, right? Or if you're like, man, can we just beef it up, give this the, I don't know, give the hi-hat a little more presence, which would be awesome. That's gonna probably be an EQ, would be the thing you'd reach for to help you accomplish that goal. So to give you an example of what an EQ can do, we're gonna hop inside Logic. Okay, I'm using the stock EQ plugin, it's right here, so nothing fancy. And you can see right here, there's all these numbers, right? There's all these different things called bands, and this is how you're gonna be able to mess with audio. So let's just say right here, the example that I have is this kind of fuzzy synth bass. So here's what it sounds like. Okay, so let's just say, let's play pretend, like I really like the bass synth, but I don't like that kind of that like higher end buzzing sound. I don't like the fuzzy part of the fuzzy synth. Then what I could do is take my EQ and I can kind of roll it off. I can find out where that is. So it's playing. It's already going away. Oh yeah, if I want to totally get rid of it. Right? So now that fuzzy synth just became a bass, like just a sub bass, right? So I used EQ to mess with the frequencies to get the sound that I wanted. Super straightforward, super simple. So that's what an EQ can do. The next one that I want you to focus on is gonna be a compression plugin. And compression is complicated. I was confused by compression for the longest time. Here's what you need to know about compression at the beginner level. A compressor is used to smooth out volume levels. Really, at its base form, that's it, to smooth out volume levels. So let's say like a prime example is gonna be a vocal, all right, a vocal performance. And because it is a performance, there's gonna be intimate moments, there's gonna be more expressive and dynamic moments. Because of all of that, which creates a good performance, there's gonna be these peaks and valleys of volume, right? The intimate stuff's probably gonna be quieter than the big chorus jump or leap or expressive part, right? Because we have these volume differences, a compressor can help eliminate those gaps, all right? So a compressor limiting those gaps is gonna make the vocal, in this case, it's the instrument we're talking about, it's gonna make the vocal sound more consistent. It's gonna make it sound more professional because we're not dipping and going up again. Like the listener wouldn't have to be reaching for the volume knob and constantly adjusting the volume down and up. Man, it's really quiet here, but wow, it's really loud here, right? A compressor can help us do that. Because of that, it's also gonna give you the side effect of making things just sound consistent and making things sound really strong. So a compressor is another one that you wanna reach for. And so an example of what a compressor could do, again, I'm just gonna reach like the stock plugin here. All right, let's do a piano. So this one's a piano, here's before. Okay, so if you could hear that, there's parts where it's a little quieter and then there's some accent notes in there. So if I just, again, use a stock compressor, nothing fancy, just inside Logic, I went to a piano preset, right? And it already started to kind of tame those gaps a little bit. Check it out. Right, so already just that little lift is making that piano kind of go from dun 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 dun, right, to just more of a dun 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 dun. It's like all the same level. That's an awesome example of what a compressor could do for you. So again, these are super basic tools, but are super powerful, especially if you start to stack these up over multiple instruments, not just a vocal, but vocals, a guitar, and a drum beat or something like that, okay? So those were your best enhancing cleanup plugins. Let's go over some best manipulating plugins. And these are the ones that if you find yourself saying, ooh, I wish it went like, right? You're like trying to make a sound effect because you can't really explain what you want, but you know what you want, and so you're like, you just resort to all these effects and stuff. That is gonna be a manipulative plugin, most likely. I think you could throw an EQ in there, a compressor could do stuff like that, but more often than not, the creative plugins, instead of more the utility plugins, are gonna be these guys at the beginner stage. So a pitch plugin, a reverb plugin, a delay plugin, and a distortion plugin. Okay, so let's go through these really quick. So a pitch plugin is gonna help you manipulate the pitch of audio, just up or down. Like you can make it go all over the place. Right now, especially in our music scene, this is really common with vocals, like remixes or stuff, like you hear the vocal kind of morph down and then it goes up. Pitch plugin, that's what's doing that, okay? So this is awesome for vocals. You could use it on instruments. Sometimes it's pretty cool on drums, especially if you had like a drum like loop or a sample that doesn't really sound like it's in tune with maybe your bass or something in your song. You can use these plugins more as a utility just to get it to where you want it to. But these are super fun to be creative with. Let's look at an example of that. So if I'm gonna jump into Logic, again, just the basics. We're not doing anything crazy. Here it is. Pitch shifter. Awesome. Here's like a little effect that I have before. It's just like a vocal transition effect. Pretty high pitched. Let's say, I kind of see what's that like if we go a little lower. So I got this on, I brought it down to about 4-ish, whatever, -4. See what that sounds like. Already. Right? I just brought it down. And maybe in the song that I was doing, that's what I wanted. I was like, I just wanted this to go down. But I'm already effectively getting what I want through just this basic plugin, right? So continuing on, reverb plugin. Whoa, man. Oh man. Okay, reverb plugin is gonna help you mess with reflections and sound waves. It's basically, if I was just gonna sum it up, it's the underwater effect. Like it's the sloshy, milky, awesome, like ethereal sounding stuff that really, if you put it on anything, it sounds dope. Like that's no lie, just about anything. I will say here right now, because like maybe I want to be like your big bro or maybe your younger bro, I don't know, whatever I am to you watching this YouTube video, but please don't put a lot of reverb on your drums. I'm speaking from experience. Just at the beginner level, man, you don't even gotta mess with it. A little bit is tasteful, just dumping reverb all over your drums, just don't do it. That was a side tangent. Hopefully that helps somebody. All right, so reverb, what would that look like inside of, I don't know, a DAW? All right, so here we go. Let's say I've got this synth going. Okay, let's say, man, I wanna make that sound like, right? There's my effect. There's me trying to communicate what I want. Okay, so I open up just Logic Pro's sound designer right here, okay? Fun, right? So you can instantly hear how that just shot everything out. Awesome, awesome effect. Reverb you can use, again, just about everything. Just watch it on those drums. Watch it on those drums. All right, the next one we can talk about is delay plugins. Man, these are really cool. These are very cool. So delay plugins help you manipulate audio by just having it repeat or echo at different intervals. It's really sweet. It's awesome on vocals. It's awesome on some guitar, even really good on some percussion. So I wanna take a look at that really quick. If I'm back in Logic here, I'll put our reverb away. All right, so I got a tambourine, okay? This is no delay. Sick, right? Let's throw on our delay, again, stock delay. Wow, it's moving a lot faster, right? And you can see there's so many different presets that you can use. And again, this isn't unique to Logic. I think just about any DAW is gonna have a whole bunch of delay presets you can use, but maybe it was moving too slow for me. Maybe it's not a tambourine, maybe it's something else, right? And you get to choose that delay. It can kind of give some depth to the instrument, some movement, right? Make it feel like a little more alive. So we got delay, and then I did save at least my favorite for last. I guess I won't say the best, but it basically is distortion plugins. These things are awesome. So this stuff can just make stuff sound angry, man. Like, they just make stuff sound angry. It is like reverb though, it's very addicting. So if you keep using this over and over and over again, your music's just gonna sound very angry, but that's okay. Most of us maybe start there. I totally did. The first 2 EPs that I ever put out, basically distortion is on everything from vocals to drums to guitars to bass, like it's everywhere, right? Because it's awesome. Really tasteful on drums, really tasteful on vocals and guitar, 808s especially today. So distortion plugin can be really fun. Let's take a look at that. And again, we don't have to go overboard like I was saying, but I am gonna do it on some drums. So here's the drum loop that I have. Yeah, so it sounds super nice and polished and clean and stuff, and I'm just like, no way, dude, let's get angry with it. So we're gonna go here, turn it on our distortion, stock distortion. Oh man. Without it. With it. See what I'm saying? So that is another awesome creative tool that you could use in your arsenal, right? All right, so let's kind of wrap all this up a little bit with some personal recommendations. If I were you, if I was just starting out, if I was just watching this video, I'm about to go forward, I would hope that I would tell you to use free plugins until you've truly maxed them out. And when I say max them out, I just mean like until you really understand them. You know what I mean? Like you know what they do, and not just what they do, but how you can use them across multiple instruments, multiple kinds of songs, genres, situations in songs. Then you could start to think about paid plugins. That would be my advice, because check this out. If let's say, you know, you've got the distortion plugin in Logic, right? You're using it, you're putting it on stuff, you still don't really understand it, you know, but then you just go purchase a super fancy distortion plugin. Well, now you just spent money to stay confused. You know what I mean? So like learn your original plugin, learn these basic ones before you start to branch out. So any plugin that you would pay for, let's try to see if there's a free version that you could figure out and try to understand the sonics, figure out how it's appropriate. Some of these plugins may not even be appropriate for the kind of music that you make. You know what I mean? So like do your research, do your due diligence, and try to find plugins that you're actually gonna use. Then upgrade those to fancier versions if you so desire, only from the standpoint of knowing what they mean, you know? And when it comes to just paying for plugins right off the bat, this was me. Like, I totally understand if you just want to spend money on stuff. That's what I did. But my advice would be, if you're gonna spend money, own your gear. Just own your gear, man. Like, don't let your gear own you, you know? So please stay clear of payment plans, recurring fees, monthly dues, yada, 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 just to have access to the creative tools. You know what I mean? At the beginning, if you're gonna pay a subscription just to have access, like, to plugins and stuff that you could just have for free inside of a different DAW, maybe if you switched or something like that, like, it's really worth considering, because you don't want to get off on the wrong foot. And again, if I'm trying to be like your big bro or your little bro or whatever, I'm trying to say, hey, if you're starting out, stick with stuff that's going to be, that's going to allow you to like thrive. You know what I mean? Stick with stuff that's going to allow you to thrive and prosper. And that means having a low ticket entry. If you are shelling out money each and every month, each and every year, just to have access to create, when something happens in life or you don't really feel like it, you could just cancel the subscription just like that. And along with the canceling is also your creative ability to output and create, right? And your ability to output and create is gonna override any piece of gear, any piece of software that you ever get, right? Because it starts with you. You're the person using the stuff, right? So if you're looking for a way to kind of package all this together, again, I'd really recommend the blueprint that I put out, because I put a lot of time into it to help steer you down a wise path, I think, because there's a lot of information, right? There's a lot of information about gear and equipment, but I don't think there's a lot of wisdom. So I tried to put everything together and what you need to avoid what you don't, so that you can plug yourself in no matter what your outcome with music is, whether you just want to create beats or you'd like to be a self-produced singer-songwriter, I've got equipment recommendations according to those needs. So check that out at studiogearblueprint.com, or of course you could just check down, the link is in the description. And before I head out, what's like your next step? Like, what plugin are you excited to learn more about? I'd love to hear. I would love to nerd out with you about all the stuff. Maybe you like distortion too. I don't know. Maybe you really love reverb. Whatever it is, would love to hear more about it. And we'll see you in the next video.